around the world for the last 25 years. I've worked with organizations all over the place. We're going to probably turn that down just a little bit. I've worked with organizations all around the world. I've worked with every branch of the armed forces, Fortune 500 companies, Super Bowl champions, Olympic athletes, and NBA champions. And what I found out was they all had one thing in common. They had a game plan, solutions, strategies, and results. And it revolved around 4 different elements. And those elements were attitude, communication and engagement. They had to play like a team. They all had a symbolic focus, something that they could kind of rally around, whether it was a project, whether it was a championship, whatever it might have been, was something that they could rally around and really kind of take off on their own. And it was very interesting because each one of these organizations had what we call a transformational leader. And that transformational leader was there to develop other leaders. That's the key in transformation. It's not just keeping it to yourself, but it's developing those other people as you're moving along. Well, a good friend of mine, John Maxwell, said one of the single most important things that you can do is become a transformational leader. See, because what you're doing is you're developing other leaders. It's giving back, it's getting them mentored, just like Robert had said, and moving them forward, giving them the tools that they need to be successful. But the first thing they have to do is they have to start to be able to hear what you're saying, hear above the noise. Because right now there's a lot of noise out there, and you've got to stand above that noise. You've got to be a little bit different. You've got to look for things that are a little bit different. Look for that talent inside someone that you might not have seen beforehand. Well, there are a number of different transformational leaders. So one of the best examples I could use is Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. Unbelievable transformational leaders. You know how Steve Jobs had gotten fired from Apple before he made a comeback? Because he was thinking a little bit differently. See, because if you learn to transform your thinking, you learn to optimize your assets, and your assets are every single person in this room. It's the information that you have in your brain, it's your communication connections, and then you accelerate your connectivity. You accelerate the rate at which you connect with people, and you accelerate the rate at which you execute. You will then become champions. It's as simple as that. If you think good is good, and everybody's doing a great job, a good job, you are going to be dead. Because good just doesn't work these days. You've got to be excellent in order to attract the right people, to retain the right people, and you've got to create an environment that is conducive for growth. And that's by giving people opportunities, setting them up to succeed, and putting them in charge of different things that you might want them to take advantage of. Some other leaders in transformation, Mark Zuckerberg, Jack Dorsey of Twitter, these people change the way we communicate. So by becoming a transformational leader just means you're doing something a little bit different. You're thinking outside the box. I mean, how many of you here remember when we used to use those cell phones that looked like a brick? You can knock somebody out, right? And now they're so small. Someone once gave me it was the first shuffle. And I said, no, this is too small. I can't use it. I need something bigger. Now I've got the little one when I go run, I've got this little thing attached to me going in my head. I was doing a skate the other day down on Hollywood Beach, and I did a Facebook Live because people are connected. You never know when someone's watching you, someone's paying attention, someone's going to get that information from you. Well, all of a sudden I see this guy, and I was talking about red flags because it was a red flag day at the beach, and my brain shut on right away. And how many of us have missed the red flags in our lives? Whether it's in a relationship, whether it's with, you just know somebody and something says to you, I just don't know what it is, but there's something not quite right about this new interview. I just know this new hire, and then you found out. It's kind of like the multiple choice test in school. How many of you changed the answer from the right one to the wrong one? So you all knew it. It was in your gut. You felt it and stuff, but you went against yourself, and then you beat yourself up because who's the most difficult person on each one of us? So we've got to learn how to transform and connect better with the people around us. We also have companies that are transformational companies like Google and Amazon. I used to see packages come to my house with Amazon Prime like every other day. I didn't know where they were coming from. And all of a sudden people ordering, sending stuff to my house. I like to go to a store and interact, talk to people. I'm a little bit shy, coming out of my shell. But I like to interact. That's why stores are going out of business, because people are starting to buy online. Amazon is now setting up an Amazon Prime airline. I worked with a company a couple of weeks ago called Bollari Logistics. They're a $15 billion company out of France. I never heard of them, but they've been around for 100 years. And they should. Amazon Prime has now get their own airplanes through Boeing. They're Lend Leasing. So they're thinking a little bit differently. They're thinking outside the box. See, what I found is some of you are putting out fires every day. How many of you are putting out fires all the time? Okay? And most of you can't see past here, and opportunities are out here. They're all on the periphery. It's when you least expect it, those opportunities will start to show up. But it's all about your attitude. It's all about how you're going to engage and you're going to connect and communicate. It's all about getting to people to play in the same sandbox together as a team and creating some sort of symbolic focus that will get them all involved on the same page so that they're focused on the goals and objectives. They're not focused on the process. Because have you been at work and you're so busy? How quick did that day go? It just blew right by. See, but when we get bored and we get stuck in the minutia, we don't make it fun, we're clock watching, it's dragging, it's carrying on. So what can you do to make things a little bit more fun? You know, I handed out this brochure here today, so just kind of get your brain stimulated a little bit. And, you know, some of the personal objectives. Do you know what you wanted to accomplish today when you came in here? See, Stephen Covey says, begin with the end in mind. Know what you want your outcome to be and work your way backwards. I knew what I wanted to have happen. I'm sure it's going to happen by the end of today. Do you know what you want to have happen? Because if you don't, that's what you're going to get. And then underneath there, I talked about victories and challenges. See, we all have little victories, but sometimes we can't remember our victories. I have a victory book, and inside I write down every single thing I've ever accomplished. See, because I know sometimes when I don't feel like I can accomplish something, I can't be all the best I can be, and I go look at that victory book and I say, you know what? I felt that way back then, and I feel that way now. I was able to do it then, I was able to do it now. I go in my backyard, I create this massive, incredible backyard with groves and waterfalls and all that. That's my personal victory book. Because whenever I don't think I can accomplish something, I look out there and I said, I built this from scratch. I planted every plant. I did everything. People come in and say, wow, this is amazing. So if I don't think I could do something, I see that and I use that as leverage to get to the next level. Make sense? Because some of us have forgotten our references. You all learned how to pass a class. You all learned how to ride a bike. You all learned how to drive a car. You all learned how to speak and get here, yet we forgot what brought us to the dance. So it's so important to do that because as a transformational leader, it's going to be your job to remind people what got them there in the first place. Your job to motivate them to get them to the next level. Because if you're not motivating them to get to the next level, they're not going to be with you very long. See, some transformational leadership mottos, the first one is become change-oriented. Nobody likes change. How cool is that? But change is good. It's great. The things that we're doing now is because we've had the ability to change. One of my companies in Argentina, I speak to them. I do executive coaching with their two owners. They run the internet in Latin America. They own all the underground cable that goes into Latin America. And then they sell it to like AT&T and Tata and Digicel and Orange and all these different companies. And I work with the owners via Skype. I meet with them, then I go fly to Argentina 3 times a year. It's real tough. And I meet with the management team, you know, and it's working, coaching, getting them focused. And when you get a call from an owner of a company that just made $35 million last year, and on New Year's Eve he calls you up and tells you how amazing his team's doing and thanks me so much for all this great stuff his team's doing, and I asked him one question. Is it the team that changed, or did you change? See, because I knew the answer. He had changed, and everybody started changing around him, and they couldn't stand him, believe me. He was obnoxious. He was a pain. I felt affinity to him because I had that same situation when I was in a younger state, not really knowing how to communicate effectively, talk with people. So you got to become change-oriented. Next, good enough never is. Because people are going to come in and say, oh, this is good enough. It never is. Now, perfect also takes too long, in my opinion. I want perfect for my surgeons, for my doctors, you know, but I don't need perfect every time because you have people that are just working on some working and they never get it out the door. Sometimes we got to get things out the door and move paper. Sometimes we just got to get things done. And here's the cool thing. If you make a mistake, you got a 50-50 shot. If it doesn't work, do something different. I heard somebody this morning, and they were using my line, I think. You know, I always say, if you don't ASK, you're not going to GET. What is the worst thing that can happen? Someone says no, you're in the same spot. Someone says yes, you went to the next level. And you've all been in that position where someone said to you, well, I don't know if this is going to work. And you asked them. You said, they're never going to say yes to me. And you asked. And they said, sure. And you almost fell over. You couldn't believe it. Like, why haven't I been doing this for years? So if you don't ASK, you're not going to GET. What could be the worst thing that can happen? What works can always be better. See, the best people understand the wheel has been invented. The general concept's pretty good. What we have to do is just make it a little bit better. We now have wheels that won't blow out, that you don't have to put air in, all these different things. Wheels that work on ice, wheels that work on hot roads. It's just fixing things a little bit because, you know, if you improve yourself 1% a day in 365 days, you are 365% better. Who wouldn't give me every dollar of their money for a 365% return on your investment? See, but the best investment is in yourselves. The best investment is in the people that you work with. Because when you get to develop them, you get to see some really cool stuff. And you know what else? You get to go on vacation. See, some of you say, I'm not going to delegate this because I could do it better than them. And you know what I found out? That there's a lot of people that do things much better than I do. And I can't do it all myself. I don't know how to type. I wrote a whole book called Living a Championship Life, Game Plan for Success. I never typed one word because I don't know how to type. I talked the whole book in. I talk pretty fast, huh? Went pretty good. So it's focusing on your strengths, not on your weaknesses. Focus on what your strengths are and utilize them, and then take the talents of the people on your team and use their strengths in order to achieve your goals and objectives. Now you've just developed somebody who feels pretty damn good about themselves, don't they? And they're going to do it over and over again. And then you get those people to develop other people. Same mentoring project, but from a transformational perspective. Giving them the opportunity. Transformational leaders give their teams all the tools that they need to succeed. They provide the vision, the direction, they communicate the vision and direction, and then they allow those people to get the job done. And that's going to be the key to your change. Like I said, you want to sit there and look right down. What are your victories? What have you accomplished? Because I guarantee you accomplished some good things, but what's your biggest challenges in the next 2 to 3 years? Is it hiring the right people? Is it developing the people you have right there? Because a lot of times, I'll say you go out and find somebody new, you just found a new problem. I would rather work with the people that I've got right there because now I can get them to the next level. And then I could utilize them as a story for other people. See, I want my team to look at that person and say, if Johnny can do it, I can do it. He's a dummy. I could totally do that. I love that because it develops people. Whichever way you've got to get it done, but invest that time. Every year I take 10% of my money and I invest it back in myself in books, tapes, seminars, just like you're doing right now. Do you know less than 1% of all people in this country read more than one nonfiction book a year? I mean, how many of you read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People? Raise your hands. All right, a few people here, good. It's been on the bestseller list for like 100 years. What are you waiting for? You know what the beautiful thing about a book is? Someone takes all their success, 20, 30 years success, they put it all in the book. All you have to do is read the book, do what they do, you get the same results. But we want to know a better way. I am not that smart. I see what other people do, I do the same thing, and I get the same exact results. It's a no-brainer. So why are you trying to do something different? Why are you trying to reinvent that wheel? Start to look at some of the basics. People don't want to communicate in 145 characters anymore. Sometimes the best thing I could do is write that old-fashioned note. I bring them with me everywhere. Dear Joe, thanks for that compliment. Thanks for that great job. Really appreciate it. Well, as I'm skating down the beach on this Facebook Live, a guy says, hey, you know what? You really need to have some wireless headphones. He said, what's your address? I'm going to send you some. And 2 days later, I got wireless headphones. I looked this guy up. He saw me play hockey in college. I didn't know who he was, but I know he owns the largest home electronics place, puts in these big flat screens, all the multiple screens in Chicago. So what did I do? I shot a commercial, sent it out to everybody, said, this guy's unbelievable. And I told the story, how if you connect with enough people, hey, I got a pair of unbelievable wireless headphones, Bluetooth, I can go up and down the beach without having that cord hanging down all the time. Because he kept seeing that cord. He's like, those like Sonys are like 100 years old. I'm a guy. I don't have a lot of shoes, maybe 4 pair. It's one of those things. I get what I need. But you got to make those things a little bit different. Oop, we're back on there. How about me? Well, it all comes down to attitude. A number of years ago, I was asked to be one of the team physicians for the St. Louis Rams. People forget that they were the single worst team in the 90s. They won the first 4 games of the season, and then they lost every single game for the next 2 years. Patients would come in and say, can't you fix these guys? And I said, I get them on the field. I don't, treat their brains so much, but I started to. And I started to kind of get in their head because they would come in complaining in front of my positive patients, and I couldn't have that in my office. Well, see, how many of you deal with difficult people? Raise your hands. How many of you are difficult people? Keep your hands up. I know you are. Well, it all comes down to attitude, and attitude is what goes in your brain. Your brain doesn't know the difference between something actually happening and something imagined vividly in great detail. It's going to make you right every single time. There was a guy who wrote a book. His name was Dr. Maxwell Maltz. He was a plastic surgeon in New York City. And he had a woman come into his office, and she was magnificent. Everyone agreed she was amazing, but she had this little crook in her nose, and she thought she was ugly. Well, they went and they chose a new nose out of the book of noses, and they performed the surgery, and when she came back, she was absolutely stupendous. And she sued him for malpractice. Every time she looked in that mirror, she saw this ugly person. Well, it went before the judge and jury. They looked at the before and after pictures, and they said she's absolutely magnificent. So they threw it out of court. But her brain couldn't tell the difference between something actually happening and something imagined vividly in great detail. If you don't believe this, think about this. Have you bought a new car in the past or just recently? I guarantee the moment you bought that new car and you started driving around Sarasota, Bradenton, everybody was driving the same damn car, right? There were hundreds of them on the road because your brain was going on search to make you right and say, hey, that guy or gal's one smart cookie, great minds think alike. I got the right car too. They still did. It makes you right every single time. It's kind of what goes into your head. How many of you have woken up in the morning and said, oh, it's going to be one of those days? And you have a mom or grandma that said bad things happen in threes. Anybody have that mom and grandma like me? Right? And all of a sudden, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They kept coming. You go, see, I knew. I was right. It was going to be one of those days. Here's my question. What'd you ever get for being right? I have been right a billion times. At least I think so. But I haven't gotten anything yet. So if you got something, I need to know the secret because I want to get some stuff too. See, when we make ourselves right, what good does that do for our team? We need to move the team forward. And being right doesn't help move our team forward. It just makes us right for whatever pompous reason that may be, but it's not effective in moving things forward. We've got to move things forward in an effective way. You probably woke up, like I said this morning, you said, I got to go to this thing, I got to go to this State of Talent conference, I got things on my desk, I'm going to get back, I'm going to have all this stuff to do. Every single day I wake up the same way. For 30 years I've been saying the same exact thing. I say I'm a healthy, vital, active, happy, and successful human being. I affirm today that all tissues and organs in my body are functioning perfectly, and that's the way it's supposed to be. I am more relaxed than ever before because I choose peaceful, loving thoughts and release my fears, worries, and anxieties. Tension is gone because I'm creating an atmosphere of ease and confidence. My mind is uncluttered because I have set specific goals and planned action steps for their accomplishment. I feel better now. Nature uses the food that I eat, the air that I breathe, the water that I drink, and the rest that I get to rebuild, repair, and revitalize me for the future. Radiant energy flows through me. I also affirm today that money is plentiful and in abundant supply, and this money flows freely and constantly into my life as I render loving service to all mankind. What do you say? Oh, I got to go deal with Debbie today. I hope she doesn't show up. We've got to make a conscious effort to have that attitude. Well, Mike Jones came into my office, and real close to him, and he says, Doc, we're done. See, we had this guy, his name was Trent Green. And we got him from Kansas City. He came in. He was going to be the savior. We're going to go to the promised land. We're not going to lose every single game. Until the third preseason game when Trent Green went down with a season-ending knee injury. Well, at 6:30, all the players would come into my office right around a block from Earth City and Rams Park. So they'd all come in and scare the heck out of most of my female patients as they walked in. Well, he walked in and he said, Doc, we're done. We're going to have another losing season. Well, I'm in a place of health and motivation. And my son would always say, Dad, how do you talk to these guys like that? They're twice the size of you. And I said, when they do something that's stupid, when they do something that's not good for them, if I don't communicate that effectively, it's on me. Because I never want to say, I wish I would have, should have, could have, if only I'd have. That's a bad place to be. I want to make sure to just get it out, let it happen. And I said, if you can't, then you must. If you must, then you will. He said, what? And I told him a story about my dad. My dad was going to be a professional baseball player. And my grandparents wanted him to go up to the mountains for this weekend. They weren't going to let him play ball in New York City. Well, he went up to the mountains. He came back. 3 days after he got back, he had polio. The polio was rampant upstate New York. Hit him. It went from his legs down. He was totally paralyzed from his legs down. And he lived his life, his athletic life, through me. Well, at 12 years old, I was traveling around the country. I was playing ice hockey, and I didn't want to play anymore. I wanted to be normal. And my dad, who was huge, and he had a fist that was bigger than my face. He stood at the end of the bed. He said, first of all, Goodmans don't quit. He said, if you can't, then you must. If you must, then you will. And I was about to cry. I didn't understand why. And he told me about his physical therapist that made him get out of bed every single day. He said, if you can't, then you must. If you must, then you will. My dad did pretty good after that, walking around and all this stuff. Well, I don't know where that came, but I looked at Mike Jones. I said, if you can't, then you must. If you must, then you will. So if you can't, then you must, then you must, and you will. And I kept saying this mantra all along. Well, they went on to have an amazing season. They were known as the greatest show on turf. And this is exactly what happened. Right in the last seconds, Mike Jones makes the winning tackle on the 1 foot yard line. It's now known as the tackle, one of the most famous plays in Super Bowl history. You never know how you're going to have an impact on somebody with something that you've said, something that you've done. You may not find out now. You may not find out till 20 years from now how you've affected someone. Well, I had my attorney call me up one day, and he said, I've got a whole bunch of VIPs coming in, and my brother owns a sports agency. Could you invite some of your players? And I said, sure. I'll invite a bunch of guys. And he said, I got to go to the airport. I got to go pick up this guy, Tommy John. You ever hear this guy? I go, you're going to pick up Tommy John? I mean, my attorney knows less than zero about sports. I mean, he's like, who's Tommy John? I go, Tommy John Surgery. He's got his own underwear line now. He's World Series. I said, I'm going with you. So I said, here's the deal. The only way we do this is if me, you, and Mike and Tommy John play golf together. Well, we're out on the golf course, and I'm shanking them in the woods, and we're just having a good old time, and they're telling stories, and Mike's asking Tommy John stories, and Tommy John's asking him stories, and, he's telling stories about George Steinbrenner and all this good stuff, and finally he looks at Mike, he says, Mike, what were you thinking at the end of that day? What were you thinking when there was only a few seconds left in the game? And he said, you see this guy over here? This could be the most annoying person you will ever meet in your life. All he kept saying is, I can, I must, I will, I can, I must, I will. It popped in my head, I can, I must, I will, without thinking I made that tackle. You don't know how you're going to affect people. I didn't know I played a role in that until Mike was in my book. And right on the back of my book, he's like, hey, you know what? You did it here. You never know how you're going to have an effect on someone. And maybe I just got annoyed. Maybe the New York of me was coming out and saying, hey, you know what? If you're going to whine, I'm going to tell you why you shouldn't be whining. But how effective a communicator are you going to be if you don't tell it like it is? If you sugarcoat it? If you play nice? Are you really helping someone, or are you doing them a disservice by not enabling them to improve? Because we want people to improve. We want people to get better. But sometimes you don't know the end of the story until the end of the story. Well, I had a wake-up call. See, my first 2 years in practice, I went through over 200 front desk people. My patients would come in and say, you must be really tough to work for, or who's the new front desk flavor of the month? And, finally, I just kind of figured, hey, it ain't me. It can't be me. I'm not this bad. I mean, what is it? See, but it was me. And I wrote this book called My Team Sucked. 10 rules that turned them into rock stars. See, but here's the real reason. The person who sucked was me. I wasn't an effective communicator. So I started to travel around the world, and I would interview people that kept their staffs for 10, 20 years, and then would will the children of the staff member to work with that doctor. And I utilized a lot of that information and started to keep my team for 10, 15 years. People working with. Right now, I'm in business with people that I've known since 6th grade. I know it's a little crazy. I like to keep long-term relationships. And if I can help people out, especially if I've known them forever, man, that gives me my juice. Because if you give to get, you're even. If you give, expect nothing in return, you're way ahead of the game. Well, I realized from Mr. Miyagi that there's no such thing as a bad student. Bad teachers say, student do. See, once I learned how to communicate more effectively, then I changed as a leader. No different than Luciano. He changed completely. Well, I recognize that you've got to communicate individually with everybody. See, how many of you believe in the golden rule? Do unto others, others do unto you. Raise your hands. Stupid rule. Really? Think about this. Would you treat all your children the same exact way? Of course not. Some need a little kick in the pants, some and say, get out of my way and let me do my job. I got Goodman's rule. Do unto others as they need to be done unto. Everybody's different. Everybody needs something different. You're going to have people on your team that are going to need more of a challenge. You're going to have people on your team that are just ready to, they're maybe doing time. They're just checking it out. See, with my son, I've got to communicate differently with my son. See, how many of you got teenagers and, out there? You got teenagers? How many of you turned dumb overnight? Anybody? Okay, you'll make a comeback. Trust me on this one. I'm not quite there yet. Well, my son called me up, and he decided he lives out in Hollywood, and he was working for a company called LA Talent, and he was managing actors. And he called me up and said, hey, Dad, I'm hanging out with Turtle from Entourage. And, he's telling me all these great stories. And then they moved him to work with kid actors, and then they moved him into print modeling kid actors. Well, he calls me up one day. I'm driving in my car with my assistant, Shirley, and he says, Dad, can you talk? I said, yeah, what's up? He said, I just got fired. I said, that's great. He said, what? I said, you were just doing time. I said, Shirley's sitting next to me. She's been with me 13 years. She's in that doing time mode. She had too much fun. I sent her on vacation everywhere. Now I'm saying, hey, we got to get back to work. We got to make things happen. And she don't want to do that. It's like letting your kids out till midnight and then giving them a curfew after a year. Being by 9. Very difficult to do. So I said, you were just doing time. So you were staying in a position long enough so it looked good on your resume so you can go and get the next job. And you know what? People know when you're doing time. So I said, here's the good news. Now you know what you don't want to do. How cool is that? See, most people don't know. I go around the world, I ask people, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 years old. I asked you an hour ago. I said, what do you want to be when you grow up? And he said, good question. Usually I get, I don't know. Here's the deal. You're not coming back. You may come back as a fish or a frog, but you're not coming back as you. So if you're not doing what you love to do, you better do something different. Could you tell I like what I do? I'm getting to do this. This is my fun part. But you get to do anything you want to do. Well, there's always an end to that story. My son ended up getting a job with Levity Entertainment Group out in LA. He manages comedians, so anybody ever hear of Sebastian Maniscalco? I think he's going to be around here shortly. Or Bert Kreischer, or the first time I saw the Jeff Dunham comedy special, and the credits rolled, and there was Alex Goodman. And I'm there with my cell phone taking pictures of the TV. See, because I knew in 30 years he's going to look back at that and think it's so cool because that's his first TV credit. And then he calls me yesterday. He goes, Dad, you're not going to believe what I'm doing. He goes, I'm pitching today. So what do you mean? He's not playing baseball. He's pitching somebody. Who are you pitching? He goes, Sacha Baron Cohen. He takes a picture. He's in the Hollywood Hills with his homie. And his homie is his partner in crime, you know. And they're both sitting there on the Hollywood Hills getting ready to go into Sacha Baron Cohen's house. Here's the key. It's not how you react, it's how you respond. Most of us react, and reaction is emotional. It's usually negative. But it's how you respond that's going to make the biggest difference. I could look back right now and say, that was the best response I've ever given. Because I could have just said, oh, you know, how could you mess up? You may have to come home. How are you going to pay your bills? You're out in LA. You got no money. I could have been Dad, or I could have been me. I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to respond effectively. I'm not going to react because there's what's the best thing that can happen? Nothing. Begin with the end in mind. What do I want to have happen? I want him to get focused on, guess what? Now we don't know what we want to do. That's just the way life is. We got to figure out what we want. And then there's my mother. You know, since my wife passed a few years ago, I'm traveling so much, so it's difficult to meet somebody. So I decided, what am I going to do on Friday night? I got these Broadway theater tickets, season tickets. So I said, I'm going to call my mom up. I'm going to take my mom out on a date. So I call her up. Mom, what are you doing Friday night? I'm just sitting home. I'm not going out. Great. I'm going to come pick you up. We're going to go to the Broward Center. We're going to go out to dinner. I'm going to take you to see Matilda on Broadway, and then I'll drop you off at home. And you know what she says to me? I think I'm just going to stay home. I saw it on Broadway already. I couldn't even get a date with my mother. It was incredible. And then there's my daughter, Mini-Me. So I put a lot of time into my son, as most men do, and especially he got to go to all the games and be in the locker rooms with the athletes, and that was the thing. And Jackie had said to me, you know, you need to spend some more time with Jamie because, you know, you put all your time into Alex, and Alex was doing an internship. So I decided I'm going to take my daughter on a couple of week trip to Europe. See, but I'm a very OTT guy. That means over the top. So anything I do, it starts out like small, and then I get crazy. So it turned into a month in Europe. And when we got, the day before, my daughter calls me up, because I'm going to write this book on this trip. It's called A Dad's Guide to Traveling with a Teenage Daughter, Generation Y. Like, why would you do it? So the night before the trip, I'm in Indianapolis. I'm at the National Speaker Association convention, and I get the phone call. And it's Jamie. And I'm checked out of the hotel. I'm getting ready to get in the cab because I'm going to fly to St. Louis, get her all ready the day before. She's never been to Europe, but I want to be prepped. I don't want anything to go wrong. And she picks up the phone. She says, Dad, no offense. Have you ever gotten a no offense line? I'm already offended. No offense, but I want to hang out with my friends tonight. Is that okay? I had to get my hotel room back. I left the cab. The cab was like, what's going on? Here's $5. I left, got back in. I hadn't even left yet. And I had to change my plans right away. Well, I'm going to get her back for this, you can bet. So I went and picked her up. And our trip was going to start. It was starting off from St. Louis to Chicago, to London, Paris, Rome, Venice, Chianti, San Gimignano, down to Florence, Madrid, Israel, back. Well, I told her mom to hide her laptop. And then when we got to the airport, I took her cell phone away. And I said, here's the deal. No cell phone, no computer, just me and you on this trip. 16 years old. She was flipping out completely. Who am I going to call? Would I have an argument with you when you're annoying? Blah, 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 blah. Well, every night we were out till about 1:30 in the morning, and it became like a running joke. I said, all right, Jamer, tonight we're going to get home before 1:30. And she would collect people along the way. She would meet people and invite them out to dinner with us. Strangers, complete strangers, in every city. Well, we're in Florence. I threw my back out. We were going to go to this one restaurant, and the seats were not good. So I said, let's go to my favorite restaurant. We'll go to Giostra, and because tomorrow night we're going to this other great restaurant. So we go in there, and next thing you know, this woman comes up to me. She recognizes me. She was one of my patients. She comes up to me at the table and starts pulling her pants up to show me her knee. My daughter is geeked out by this completely. The two people behind her, they're laughing. They can't understand it. Turns out it's the biggest leather designer in Florence and his fiance, now his wife, and she's a huge designer also. They're watching this whole scene unfold. Then the woman looks at me and says, is this your girlfriend? Now my daughter is going, really? So these two people couldn't believe it, and so what did Jamie do? She invites them out to dinner. You guys look like fun. Why don't you come out to dinner with us the next night? We have 8 couples that are going to dinner with us at my favorite restaurant, my last night in Florence. I don't even know who they are, but Jamie invited all of them. And at 1:30 in the morning, we're walking down the streets of Florence, and my daughter grabs my hand, and she said, Dad, we make a great team. I knew I hit a grand slam home run right there. I knew it was the best thing I ever did because my son hadn't called me and told me he got fired yet, so this was previous. Well, we got back, and I read what she had wrote. What she wrote was so much better than what I wrote. She was funny, and she gave little advice to people. Jamie's gems, like, when your parents are annoying, hang in there, you may learn something. And then there were Rick's revelations, where make your plans be flexible, because you're going to have to break them. And the book became Jamie's Journey, Travels with My Dad. It went from 9 to 6 to 4 on Amazon, and 2 years ago, I got to sit on the Today Show on Father's Day promoting my daughter's book. It was dropping technology. Remember, it's not how you react, it's how you respond, it's how you communicate. Are you communicating differently with each person? Because I did that, my life is completely different. My daughter calls me up and she's looking after me all the time. She just wants to know what I'm up to. Needless to say, she's got a full scholarship to the University of Missouri for journalism. So she's doing okay at 21. But it was all about that. She'll never forget that. What type of project are you putting in place that's going to take your people to the next level? See, because it's about balance. People all talk about balance. I think we're striving for balance, but we don't really have balance unless we are communicating effectively with our loved ones. We don't have balance if we're not communicating effectively with our spouse, significant other. Have a fight with your spouse, significant other first thing in the morning. Then see how many people you yell at the rest of the day. So we've got to change things a little bit. We've got to transform, and especially how we communicate. Well, we also have belief systems that are based on what I call MFTP. Mother, father, teacher, preacher. Those are people who said children should be seen, not heard. Don't speak until spoken to. Rich people are thieves. All the stuff that you heard that's not true. But those are our references in life, and we all have different references. We all have movies in our head. Well, my movie in my head was, I've got to bucket list this woman, because if I don't, I could never have a conversation with you guys ever again. It's the way it is. So I decided what I was going to do one night is I was going to make this amazing dinner. I'm going to make a rack of lamb. I'm going to get a couple dozen roses so that when Jackie walks through that door in the garage, the only thing she sees is walk right in the kitchen. She's going to see those roses. She's going to see that rack of lamb and go, what a great husband I have. That was the movie in my head. She didn't read my script. She walked in the house, she walked right by the roses, and she's on the phone. She's talking to my sister-in-law. She's walking right by, and I'm sitting there flipping out completely. She doesn't even know. She goes in the bedroom. She turns around. She goes, I got to get off the phone. She sees the rose. She goes, she blew it. She blew it completely because this was the script in my head. I wanted her to go, you're amazing. I can't believe you did that. So great. I bow down to you, all this good stuff. And what I found out is real leaders communicate their script. Dick Vermeil communicated his script, what he wanted to have happen. And that's why the Rams won the Super Bowl. See, a lot of us, we keep our script in our head. We think people should just know or assume. And if we think they should just know or assume, They're going to fail. They're never going to get it. And then when we're surprised, how did they not know? Well, because you didn't communicate. We changed the script right after that. We made a decision. Hey, guess what? When you come in that door, keep the phone away. Keep your conversation. Have your conversation in the car, and then as soon as you walk through that door, then be present. Be present. Because there's so many times when we're not present when we're there. We're there. We're not listening. We're there. We're not present. I can tell when I speak to you over the phone if you're smiling, if you're laughing, if you're paying attention. If you're not, I can feel it over the phone. If you're eating. And when we get in front of people, we turn off half our senses. And you think those people don't know? They completely know. They feel like you don't care. And if they think you don't care, guess what? They're not going to care about you either. So when you really need something, they're not going to be there for you. So you got to put that time in. 150%, always on. Always on when you're with your team. Because that's what they expect of you. They expect the best. Well, I've got a few gifts for you here because I know some of you are academics. So for you academics on the planet, there's a few things I got here for you. One is my preview for My Team Sucked, which should be coming out shortly. Then my affirmation. I had a guy call me the other day. He heard my affirmation 25 years ago and could not find it and said, you send me the affirmation. So now I give everybody the affirmation because half the time they don't know what the heck I said, but they thought it was pretty cool. And the last thing is transformational leadership. I do a program. I've done it for HRCI. It's all approved too, so you can get credits with this. But it's the full-blown, fun, serious, not like this presentation. It's by the book. If you want to teach a class, you'll have the class. So I want to give you those things. So you just got to dial 72,000. Rick, when it comes back to you, say yes. You're done. Download it. Goodbye. Next thing. So let me tell you a little about this company, Neutrona, and how I started with them. I got a call from one of the owners in Argentina, and he said, we've sent all our people to this leadership program in Chicago. We spent $50,000, and it's not working. Would you come in and work with them? I said, sure. How many people you got? 3. 3? It's like, do you know what I get paid? He's like, yeah, we do. We looked at your website. They were getting a deal. It's a company in Australia that I work for a couple times a year. It's a lost leader because I just want to go to Australia. It's pretty simple. So I said, all right. I said, send everybody. He goes, all right, we got 6 people. Most of our people are in Argentina. Well, I went and I did the program, and it went great. And he said, my partner, Luciano, is going to be there. Talking to him is just like talking to me. I said, great. Well, we talked, and I discovered there were a couple people there that probably should not be with the company any longer. There's a reason why management did not stick, because they were not open to learning. They knew everything, and they knew nothing. Once you're open to learning, then you're receptive to getting the ideas. Well, sure enough, I called him up, and I said, Mateo, listen, I think there's some things we can do. You got 60 employees right now down in Buenos Aires. I need to come down there and work with you. And he said, you know what? It's December right now. We're not quite ready. Maybe in August. I said, August? You're in technology. That's like years in technology time. You got to get your team straightened. And this was a company where they had no meeting. It was complete chaos. They said, well, this is the culture of our country. And I said, no, we don't work that way. It's not about the culture of your country. It's about the culture of the company. We hire people into our culture, whatever we decide that culture to be. So we had to redefine that culture. Well, Mateo wasn't open for this, so I said, let me send the preview of my new book. I sent him the preview. 10 minutes later, I get a phone call from Luciano. He says, Rick, my team sucks. I need to meet you at Houston's on Monday. So I went down, I met him at Houston's, and we made the decision to go and work with the team. To go down there, I was going to go down to Argentina. I was going to assess their management team. I was going to assess the owners, and I was going to give them a big report. Basically, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to do a diagnosis. I'm going to let you know what I think is going on, what we need to do to move things forward, and see where we're at with it. Well, I recognized that I wanted to put in this 5-step transformation. First, the management and individual team assessment. Because you can't change anybody unless you know what their skill set is, what makes them tick. It's kind of like if you say to your kids, go upstairs and clean up your room, and you go up an hour later and the room's not cleaned up. What's the first question you ask that child? Why? Now, some of you say, what were you doing? Picking my nose. It's a dead end. People do things because of the why. They don't do things just because. So I need to understand what was going on here and assess the situation. Next, I had to develop individualized action plans because remember I said you got to treat people individually. Some people learn differently. I don't care how you spell the word Smith, as long as you know how to say it. You could spell it S-M-I-T-H, S-M-Y-T-H, S-M-I-T-H-E. As long as you could say it, I don't care. We all have different rituals or ways we go about doing our business. As long as we hit the end result, that's the most important thing. We had to set management and team goals. See, because if you don't have goals, you have nothing. Some people say, yeah, well, I want more, I want to make more money. Well, here's $1. You have more than you did 2 minutes ago. How much more do you want to make? How much time do you want to save? Most of you put more planning into your parties than you do into your whole life. You got to make sure you have enough food, enough beer, enough wine, enough all the different things. But you don't put that planning into what do you want to be when you grow up? What do you want to do in the next 5 years? What do you want to do in a year from now? How many new people do you want to take on and train? How many people do you want to motivate and move forward? How many people do you want to get rid of? You got to know. You can't just get in the plane and say, yeah, we're going to go to Hawaii and fly west. You're going to be adapting for wind direction, speeds, other planes, etc. But you have to have that guideline. If you don't have those goals, if you don't have those measurements, you're never getting there. Then we need to create a symbolic focus. Because everybody can rally around the flag. Everybody can rally around a trophy or a championship or a project, but we got to get them involved and excited. Because if they're not involved and excited, if they don't see that there's anything in it for them, they're not going to be there. Because we all listen to the same radio station here, 97.3 WIIFM, right? What's in it for me? You all listen to that. Why should I do it? What's in it for me? They're saying the same thing. So as that transformational leader, you've got to demonstrate and explain what's in it for them. How do they benefit? They may only be seeing here, oh, you're making me do this. My daughter would never let me tell about her book for years. I sent her book to her principal until all of a sudden she was on TV and she realized she was getting scholarships and all these offers because of her book. Now it's like her business card. Hey, Dad, could you order me some more books? I'm going to interview and do this. So now she realizes the importance of it. Some people don't. You've got to be there to guide them. And delegation. You've got to learn to delegate. See, because so many of us, how many control freaks we have here, just like me? Okay, we got a few control freaks here. You're going to learn that when you delegate, one, it's going to free up your time. You're going to get somebody developed even better than you. Because that's what transformational leadership is. It's developing other leaders. It's not just doing it yourself. And you're going to find that some of these people have a skill set that's way far superior than what you can do. I know anything I give somebody where I can't type or do graphic arts, they're good. I got all these new things like Fiverr and Upwork, where I got people around the world doing things to me that I have no idea how to do. I do what I do best, and I delegate the rest because that way I am building people, I'm developing leaders. So some of you got to learn that song, like Let It Go. You got to start singing it, Let It Go. Who else can do this better than me? Because some of you are spending $100 time on $5 items. And you've got to use your time for its highest and best use, because that's the most important thing. If you're not using it for its highest and best use, it's not going to be there. Well, our situation was a newsletter. I said to the team, here's what we're going to do. We're going to create a newsletter. The owners looked at me like, really? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. I said, let me tell you something about a newsletter. First of all, it's inclusive of everybody. Second of all, you include their birthdays on there, when they have kids. You talk about the company, all these things. I said, you know what you're going to produce? You're going to produce a refrigerator score. I said, what are you talking about? I said, haven't you ever bowled before? When you were young, you went bowling and you scored a good score and your parents put it up on the refrigerator? That's a refrigerator score. Or maybe it was a picture or something that you drew in school and you hung your kid's picture up there. That's a refrigerator score. I said, one day, these people will enjoy the newsletter so much that it's going to build a team, it's going to create a family, it's going to create a movement, and someone is going to put it on their refrigerator. Well, they called me and they sent me these pictures because I have one of my coaching avenues is called Focus Fun Coaching, because I want people to be focused, but I know if they're having fun, they're more productive. So the newsletter, their first newsletter came out, and they threw a party. They had a party over a newsletter. Do you think that would happen with your company? Newsletter, it's only a newsletter. It's dumb. Give it to Mary. Make her do it. No, we asked people, who likes taking pictures? Who likes doing this? Who's involved in charities? They all got involved. They all contributed. And then, right before I gave this speech to Bellori Logistics down in South Beach last week, you know what happened? I got a text, a WhatsApp from Mateo, the CEO of a company that made $35 million in profit last year and controls the internet, and he sent me the vice president who was not doing as well as he should when I met him, but I gave him my tough talk, and he is now a superstar, and on his refrigerator in Wisconsin is the newsletter. This, right next to his daughter's picture, and he's got the hook in him. I sent him back. I said, what'd I tell you? I said, it's a refrigerator score, isn't it? Now the newsletter's now it's not one page, 2 sides, 4 pages. But it's a symbol. It's something that everybody could rally around, something that everybody can get involved in, something everybody could be proud of. And you know what's really cool? How many of you have ever been on TV before? Anybody been on TV? Okay? Or maybe you saw the TV cameras downtown, so you thought, I'm jumping up and down, I'm going to get on TV and stuff. People love to see themselves on TV. If you've ever been in an article or in a newspaper, what's the first thing you do? Cut it out, show everybody on the planet. Look at this, because people love to see that, because it's about them. My friend Bruce Turkel wrote a book called All About Them. It's out on the New York Times and everything, because that's what it is. If we focus on us, but when we focus on them, and we give them the tools that they need to succeed, guess what? We keep them forever. They're productive, and then you know what they do? They refer other people like them. Because people do business with people who they like, who are like them. You'll go buy a product from a friend of yours, even if it costs you a couple dollars more, than go to a local discount place, won't you? So make them your friends. They may not want to hang out with you outside, but that's what you got to do. I always said more business gets done on a golf course or out at a country club or something like that. More bonding gets done outside of work with your team if you can do that. And as leaders, I encourage my owners, I encourage the people that I work with and consult with, get off your butt, get out of the office and start doing a walk around. Every single time when I walk into that office in Buenos Aires, I'm the first one there, and I do my walkabout. I go through the NOC, which is running all the internet throughout the freaking world, and I see if there's a red dot, I'll go, what's going on in Brazil over there? We got a problem there? You know, but I talk to everybody. Even the ladies that are making me coffee and bringing stuff and helping everybody else out so we can kind of get our business done, because every single person's important. And the more I'm connecting with them, talking with them, guess what? If I need something, they're running to get me something. If you give to get, you're even. If you give, expect nothing in return, you're always going to be ahead of the game. Well, a few years ago, I get to hang out with really cool people, some people whose egos are way bigger than they should be, some people who think they know everything, but they're all a lot of fun. So I got this call about the results of this company. And the first thing that happened was the management team completed the project successfully. They couldn't believe it. They couldn't believe it. The owners developed new leaders. They couldn't believe it either, because all the owners complained about was, I want to let go. I want my people to do this. I don't understand. Why are they doing this? Well, you're not communicating effectively. You're not painting a picture. You're not beginning with the end in mind. Should I go on and on and on? All of a sudden, they developed their management team, and now the management team is developing the middle managers. So it's progressing right down, from the top right down, where everybody's developing everybody. Everybody gets a piece of the action. Everybody gets a piece of Rick down there. And the management team developed those leaders, because that's the key. Now guess what they get to do? They get to go around and develop more business, which is what they do best, is developing business, keeping them focused on their lane. Well, I got a call from the Miami Heat, and I went down to meet these guys. Some of you may recognize them, LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh. And this was right when we signed them, and it was kind of like a happy day. Everybody was excited. We were going to kind of go to the promised land. These guys were the best. No one was going to stop them. They were all superstars. It was a great time until Game 6. In Game 6, all these superstars that did not play like a team, that played like a bunch of individuals, lost the championship. And LeBron James was complaining. He was moaning and groaning, but he wasn't just complaining about himself. He complained about the fans. He complained about anybody who criticized him. And he said, I don't care what happens to you. Tomorrow, I'm going to go back and do the same thing, and you're going to all go back to your miserable lives. Same people, same things like that. I couldn't believe I heard this out of somebody. Well, the next season, he was still complaining. I went to practice. It was at the beginning of the season. And he's in practice, and he's complaining to anybody who will listen. Anybody listen. You know, those fans, they don't understand it. This whole summer I had to go through all this stuff. Nobody really gets me. Nobody understands me. Well, I had had enough. And Anybody who knows me knows that I've got like this much patience, and being from New York, I've got like less than zero filter. And when I hear somebody who's making $1 billion complaining about everything around them, see, I'd been there before. I was there with the Rams, except we were losing forever. Until this guy, Dick Vermeil, came in, who was a transformational leader and directed people's attitudes, gave them a vision, encouraged them, connected with them, cried with them. This guy would cry all the time. He'd invite you over his house for dinner, and he turned that team around into a family that everybody worked together. And here was dysfunction. There was dysfunction in the family, and if dysfunction continues in a family or in a business, the business starts to fold. Well, I'm sitting there, I'm listening to him, and I see him, and he's just complaining, and they're kind of getting dressed, undressed, and all that stuff, and I looked over, and I saw LeBron James shorts. And I did what most people in my position would do. I took LeBron James' big old shorts, and I put his shorts on. And I stood there just like this. I looked at him, and I said, let me tell you something, LeBron. I said, I've been with the St. Louis Rams when they went from worst to first. I worked on their brains and their bodies. You guys are playing like a bunch of individual superstars. You got to quit your whining and play like a team and just get focused. That's it. Well, you could have heard a pin drop. These guys were looking at me like, who the heck is this guy yelling at me? And I looked for the exits. I was like saying, how can I get out of here? Well, that season, the Heat went on a tear. They were winning games, and I still had his shorts. I know on me they look like longs, but on him they're shorts. Well, they started winning, and next thing you knew, they'd won the championship. But there was something behind the scenes, something that nobody knew about. See, there was a rumor. There was a rumor that they had something, some sort of symbol, something that they rallied around, that they kept between them. Because, when you're a team, you keep things on the inside sometimes. It's you against the world, especially with the Heat. Everybody was against them. Here's all these superstars. They're all well paid, and they're all loudmouths, and now they're complaining about the fans. Well, there was this rumor that they had a trophy. It was sort of a symbolic kind of trophy. And it gave their motto. See, because everybody has to have a motto, a vision statement. And theirs was all in. They were all in. Go big or go home. And it was together, tough, and trust. Together, tough, and trust. Well, this was just a rumor. And 2 hours after they won the championship, they said, yeah, we did have this kind of symbol in there. And they started talking about it. It was all over TV. And I'm sitting at home. 1 week later, there's a knock at my door. And all of a sudden, I open up the door, and it was a delivery guy. He says, Dr. Rick? And I said, yeah. He goes, oh, we got a special delivery for you. Who's it from? He said, well, from the Miami Heat. Well, I pulled out of the box, and they had sent me this symbol. Now, I didn't quite know what it was, so I opened it up, and when I looked at it, they had sent me a symbol of the championship trophy. And it said, all in, together, tough, and trust. And then I thought, why'd they send me this? And then I looked at the bottom, and it said that there were 4,000 made in the world, and that they gave me the first one. So I thought, wow, this is pretty cool, but who sent this to me? Well, I look inside the box, and inside the box was this note. Here's a symbol of our appreciation for your guidance and support. Hey, Doc, keep the shorts, from LeBron. He wasn't getting them back anyhow. You never know when you're going to have an effect and touch somebody. You never know when there's something that you're going to say is going to affect the outcome. But remember one thing. If you focus on the 4 elements of success, if you focus on attitude, and you come in every day, even if you're not all you can be, and what I call it on stage, it's kind of like my mom. She'd be yelling at all of us kids, Audrey, Lori, John, who did this? And the phone rings, she'd go, hello. You ever have that happen? She was on stage. Because that's what has to happen. Because your team, the people that you work with, deserve the best from you, even if you're not at your best. Every single day. That's exactly what they pay for. Or don't pay for. And whether it's with that, whether it's with your children, it's got to be that connection. Because the connection is going to be the most important thing. When you learn how to transform your thinking, You learn how to optimize the assets that you have around here. You've got with Career Source, they're doing an amazing thing. This is just a beautiful setting. It should only be about 1,000 people, right? We're thinking 1,000. That's my goal for you. Because there's so much good information. So, Chris, you got a lot of job. We've already been talking. You're in trouble. So, but it's what you do. It's what you put into it. So what are you going to do different next week to transform your team? What type of symbolic focus can you come up with? Make it a game, because every time you make it a game, people are going to have fun with it. And how are you going to encourage them when maybe they're not being all they can be? Maybe they're not up. You've got to be the one to pick them up. Because it's not how you react, it's how you respond. Because when you respond the right way, you can make the biggest difference in someone's life. And you're not going to know until after it's all said and done. After someone writes you something 10, 20 years later, then you're going to figure out how you did it. You know, I gave this speech for the Future Business Leaders America Conference a number of years ago. I had a kid come up to me right before the conference started. I was talking about goals and how to get everything you want out of life. And he said, I don't know why I'm here. My teachers made me come here. He said, sometimes I think about killing myself. Well, I looked at this kid and flipped me out. 16 years old. I hear the statistics. I said, sit right here. Sit right in front of me. Sit in the front row. You're not going to kill yourself there. I look for counselors. Look for people. There's like 2,000 people at this convention. Well, I got up on stage. I started talking about goals. Now, if you write your goals and you write them down, you read them 3 times a day, within 90 days, your goals are going to start coming to fruition. I've calculated 60 to 90 days. Things start to change. It's exactly what happens. Well, the kid got up and walked out. Didn't see him. 6 months later, I got a letter from Winterset, Iowa. I've never been to Winterset, Iowa in my life. It said, Dear Rick, my name is Rafael. You probably don't remember me, but I was at your Future Business Leaders America Conference. You talked about goals. When you write them down, you read them 3 times a day. Your goals are going to come true in about 60, 90 days. He goes, the time is come and gone. He said, what I believe will never leave me. In case you don't remember me, here is my picture. Well, there's the picture of this kid. I remember who the kid was. I've been telling this story for 19 years. 19 years I've been telling the story. And on a Sunday, right before Labor Day, I was flying out to South Dakota State University to talk to the students on a Tuesday, and I thought, what the heck is the end of the story? So I Google him. I Google Rafael Jacobo. You can Google him. Rafael Jacobo, turns out that he was the first Latino to be elected to the Cedar Rapids Board of Education. Beat the incumbent. So what did I do? I turned into a stalker. On Sunday, I called him up. Imagine getting a call from somebody you haven't heard from in 20 years, and I don't even know if I had an effect on him. Had no idea. But I've been carrying around this letter, and my kids always say, hey, Dad, did you tell the Rafael story? I didn't plan on telling it today, but it felt appropriate being here. So, and sometimes I'd tell it, and sometimes I'd forget, but I always carried the letter to remind me why I do what I do. So then I thought, okay, this kid's going to think I'm crazy. I'm going to make a copy of the letter and the picture, because he looks exactly like the picture, except 20 years later, he's got a whole family and kids and all that now. And so I photocopied it, scanned it, sent him that. Went and gave my speech, kind of put in the back of my mind, Wednesday I'm sitting in a restaurant in Cedar Rapids in South Dakota, and Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and all of a sudden my phone rings, I look, and it says Cedar Rapids, Iowa. I freaked out completely. I didn't know what to say. I had nothing to say. It was like, hello? Dr. Goodman? It's Rafael. I mean, I had no words. You know, I said, I got to tell you, I've been telling your story forever. He goes, I got to tell you something. He said, you're always on my mind. I've been thinking about you forever. It really stands out. And that's when I recognized what a difference I made. What a little bit of a difference you can make. Every single one of you has that ability. So I'm going to challenge you to go out there and make a difference. Go out there and do something special. Go out there and mentor these people. Go out there and listen to them. Especially the young ones, because they did grow up in our houses where everybody got a trophy. Everybody did good. So they're expecting you to be on top of them too and to guide them. And guess what? When you do that, you've just developed new leaders. And then what you've got to let them know is they got to pay that forward. They've got to do the same thing they did for others, because that's how they can thank you for taking care of them. I want to thank you guys for all being here. I got some good stuff, gifts and stuff. I've discounted.